Take a look at this footage. 2:48 in the morning, 28th of April, 2017. A security camera inside Sandton Sky Apartments picks up two figures stepping into the lobby. A young woman walks in first. She is wearing a pink long-sleeved top. A man follows directly behind her. He says nothing. She says nothing. The elevator doors slide shut. That is the last time any camera in that building ever captured her. Fast forward to 9:57 that same evening. The same man appears again, alone this time. He is dragging a large wheelie bin from a common area down toward his apartment. 10 minutes later, at 10:07, he wheels that same bin back out. But something is different. The bin is heavier now. He is working harder to move it. The lid is not sitting right. At 10:29, his car rolls out of the underground garage. He comes back later that night. The bin never does. The woman in the pink top entered that building in the early hours of the morning. She never walked out. Who was she? What happened inside that apartment? And how did one man think he could make a person simply disappear? Stay with us, because this story does not end where he thought it would. If you are new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover real cases, real victims, and real justice every single week.
Murder accused Sandile Mantsoe maintains he did not murder his girlfriend. The 27-year-old is on trial for allegedly assaulting and killing Karabo Mokoena.
Her name was Karabo Mokoena. She was born on the 27th of March, on 1995, in Diepkloof, a neighborhood in the heart of Soweto, Johannesburg. She was 22 years old when she died. Karabo grew up in a home full of love. Her mother, Lorraine, known to everyone as Lolo, and her father, Chepo, raised 4 children together. Karabo was the second-born, sandwiched between her older sister Bontle and her younger brother Mo. The siblings were close in the way that only people who truly grew up together can be. Karabo and Bontle shared a bedroom well into their young adult years, not because they had to, but because that is simply how tight they were. People who knew Karabo described her the same way, over and over again. Warm, thoughtful, the kind of person who remembered when you were going through something hard and showed up without being asked. She did not perform kindness for attention. It was just who she was. She was also driven. After completing her schooling at Hillview High School in 2014, she enrolled at Regent Business School to study business. That alone would have been enough for most people. But Karabo was not most people. Alongside her studies, she went further and obtained her aviation license from the Aviation Authority of South Africa. She wanted to fly, literally and in every other sense of the word. But perhaps the most telling chapter of Karabo's life was the work she did at the Frida Hartley shelter. She volunteered there regularly, standing in front of women who had been broken down by the people who were supposed to love them. She spoke to them about self-worth, about recognizing the warning signs early, about understanding that no gift, no car, no amount of money is worth staying in a relationship where someone raises their hand against you. She told them that real love does not ask you to make yourself smaller.
People are not interested in where you come from. People just want to know how you overcame it. You can give us your problem from A to... People just want to know the solution. Yo, you went through this, and therefore, how did you come out of it? The world owes you nothing. Arise from that dark place and be someone.
She believed every word she said. She was also building towards something bigger. Karabo had a vision of starting her own non-governmental organization, one dedicated entirely to protecting women and children in a country where violence against women had become a quiet epidemic. She wanted to be a resource, a lifeline, a reason for someone to hold on. Here is where the story becomes painful, in a way that is hard to sit with. The very warning signs Karabo taught other women to watch for, the controlling behavior, the isolation, the first act of violence that gets explained away, she would soon encounter all of them herself. The woman who stood at the front of a room and told others how to escape would find herself trapped in the same cycle she had spent months fighting against. That is not a reflection of her intelligence or her strength. It is a reflection of how calculated and deliberate her abuser was. And it is a reminder that knowing the danger and being able to walk away from it are two very different things. Karabo Mokoena deserved to see her dreams come true. What happened next made sure she never got the chance. Sandile Mantsoe was 29 years old when he met Karabo Mokoena. On paper, he looked like exactly the kind of person you would want in your corner. He was a Forex trader. He spoke about God regularly. He drove a gold BMW and a limited edition Mercedes-Benz. He wore Gucci the way other people wear everyday clothes. He lived in a penthouse at Sandton Sky Apartments, one of the most prestigious addresses in Johannesburg. His social media pages were filled with videos of luxury cars, expensive watches, and thick stacks of cash. He had built a brand around his supposed success. He called it $1 trillion Legacy. Under that name, he charged people 6,000 rand each, roughly 300 British pounds or 400 US dollars, for a single day of Forex trading lessons. His pitch was simple and seductive. Spend one day with me, and I will show you the path to financial freedom. He wrapped his sales talk in motivational language and religious references. He made people feel like they were being let in on a secret. But here is something worth remembering. People who have genuinely built wealth rarely feel the need to prove it to strangers. The constant need to display, to show off, to make sure everyone around you can see what you own, that is not confidence. That is a signal. It can mean deep insecurity, or it can mean something more calculated. It can mean someone is using the appearance of success to lower your guard. Sandile Mantsoe was not the empire builder he claimed to be. By the time his trial concluded, and more than 100 people had come forward to say he had defrauded them, the luxury cars were purchased with money taken from people who trusted his promises. The designer clothes, the apartment, the lifestyle plastered across social media. All of it was built on debt and deception. $1 trillion Legacy was not a business. It was a performance. He had also separated from his wife, with whom he had 3 children, before entering Karabo's life. He presented himself as single, available, and spiritually grounded. He was none of those things in the way he claimed. Sandile Mantsoe originally came from Mbelenhle and attended school in Secunda, east of Johannesburg. He had studied graphic design before turning to Forex trading as his supposed calling. He understood how to build an image. He understood how to make people believe in something that was not real. In October 2016, Karabo Mokoena crossed paths with this man. She was drawn to his confidence, his apparent values, and the life he seemed to be living. Within just 1 month of meeting him, the relationship had already moved further than most people would consider wise. That speed was not accidental, and it would cost her everything. In November 2016, just 1 month after meeting Sandile Mantsoe, Karabo Mokoena made a decision that worried the people who loved her most. She packed her things and moved out of her family home in Diepkloof and into his apartment at Sandton Sky. Her sister Bontel, who had shared a room with her for years, suddenly found herself sleeping alone. Her parents tried to trust their daughter's judgment, but something about the speed of it all did not sit right. The cracks appeared almost immediately. Before Christmas 2016, during an argument, Mantsoe shoved Karabo into a wall and smashed her phone. It was the first act of physical violence. It would not be the last. Destroying her phone was not just an act of anger. It was a method of control. Cut someone off from the people who love them, and you make it much harder for them to ask for help. Through the early months of 2017, the abuse continued and grew worse. Karabo began sending photographs of her bruises to friends. She was documenting what was happening to her, reaching out in the only way she could. Those images painted a picture of a young woman living in fear inside a home that was supposed to be safe. Then came the 27th of March, 2017, her 22nd birthday. In the early hours of that morning, while friends and family were trying to reach her with birthday messages, Karabo was sitting in a hospital emergency room. Mantsoe had beaten her again. She had a black eye. There were visible marks on her arms and her neck. Her phone had been destroyed, which was why no one could get through to her. When she finally contacted her mother Lolo later that morning, Karabo made a brave decision. She went to the police station to file an assault charge against Mantsoe. But when she arrived, she discovered something that stopped her cold. Mantsoe had already been there. He had filed an assault charge against her first. It was a deliberate move, designed to muddy the waters and make her look like the aggressor before she could tell her own story. Yet in the end, both charges were dismissed. According to the transcript of events, police treated the matter as a lover's quarrel, something too minor to pursue. That decision would have consequences no one could take back. After the birthday assault, Karabo finally left. She moved back to her family home in Diepkloof, back to Lolo, Chepo, Bontle, and Mo. For 2 weeks, she was safe. The bruises began to fade. Her smile started to return. The people who loved her could see her healing. But the story was not over. Sandile Mantsoe was not done. What happened in the weeks that followed would lead Karabo back into the most dangerous situation of her life. And this time, there would be no coming back from it. If you have stayed with us this far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. What comes next is the part of this story that broke an entire nation's heart. In mid-April 2017, about 2 weeks after leaving Sandile Mantsoe, Karabo went out with friends to a nightclub in Sandton. She needed it. She needed music and laughter and the feeling of being young and free again after months of fear. Then Mantsoe showed up at the same venue. Despite her friends urging her to stay away, Karabo found herself talking to him again. That was the moment the reconciliation began. This is not a criticism of Karabo. Abusive relationships do not end cleanly. They pull people back through guilt, manipulation, and the hope that things can be different. Mantsoe knew exactly which buttons to press. On the 27th of April 2017, exactly 1 month after her birthday assault and hospital visit, Karabo called her mother Lolo. She told her she was going out with Sandile that evening and that she might stay at his apartment overnight. They were just talking, she said, working through things, finding closure. Lolo begged her not to go. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong, like in the way only a mother can sense. Karabo told her not to worry. She promised to call in the morning. That call never came. That evening, Karabo and Sandile went to a nightclub in Sandton, just a short distance from his apartment. According to witness accounts reported during the trial, the two were seen arguing. The tension between them was visible to people around them. At some point, the argument appeared to settle, at least on the surface. What was said between them after that? Dyke investigators have not publicly confirmed. What the security cameras did confirm is this. At 2:48 in the morning, on the 28th of April 2017, Karabo and Sandile walked into the lobby of Sandton Sky Apartments together. She was wearing a pink long-sleeve top. Her face showed clear distress. Not a single word passed between them as they stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. That footage would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. It was also the last time any camera captured Karabo Mokoena alive. When morning came, Lolo waited for the call that was promised. It did not come. She tried calling Karabo's phone. No answer. She sent messages. They went unread. Hours passed. Lolo called Sandile directly and asked where her daughter was. His response was calm and rehearsed. Karabo had left his apartment the night before, he said. He assumed she had gone home. Karabo's sister Bontal did not wait. She went straight to Sandton Sky Apartments and spoke to building staff and security. Nobody had seen Karabo leave, but a cleaner had found something disturbing near the elevator area. Karabo's identification documents and her passport had been stuffed into a bin bag and thrown in the trash. A person does not throw away their own passport. The family reported Karabo missing. Then came a moment that would later echo loudly in a courtroom. When Lolo pressed Sandile harder, demanding to know what had happened to her daughter, he said something that nobody had prompted. "I didn't kill her." Nobody had mentioned killing. Nobody had said the word death. That thought came entirely from Sandile Mantsoe himself. When the Mokoena family reported Karabo missing, they expected urgency. What they got was the opposite. According to accounts reported at the time, it took police more than 2 days to complete the missing person report. The response that followed was equally slow. For a family with no answers and a daughter who had simply vanished, every hour of delay felt like a betrayal. It was Karabo's friends who refused to wait. They took the search online, launching a social media campaign that spread her story across Johannesburg and far beyond. Photos of Karabo circulated widely. People shared, commented, and demanded answers. The campaign kept her name alive at a moment when the system was moving too slowly to do so itself. On the 30th of April 2017, police finally requested the security footage from Sandton Sky Apartments. Building staff handed over the recordings. What investigators saw on those tapes changed the direction of the case entirely. The footage showed Karabo and Sandile entering the lobby together at 2:48 in the morning on the 28th of April. It also showed Sandile alone that evening, dragging a large wheelie bin from a common area to his apartment at 9:57, then wheeling the same bin, noticeably heavier, toward the underground garage at 10:07. At 10:29, his car left the garage. He returned later that night. The bin did not. When police visited Sandile's apartment, they noticed something else. There was a large wet patch on the carpet near the kitchen area. The fibers had been scrubbed vigorously. Sandile told them his refrigerator had leaked. According to those present, the stain was far too large and too thoroughly clean to match that explanation. Investigators have not publicly confirmed what forensic testing of that stain revealed. Meanwhile, on the 29th of April 2017, a passerby made a grim discovery in an open field in Lyndhurst, Johannesburg. Badly burned human remains had been left in a shallow grave. The find was reported to police. Forensic teams were called in. DNA testing was conducted, and the results confirmed what the family had feared most. The remains belonged to Karabo Mokoena. She had been stabbed, doused with acid and petrol, and set on fire. On the 10th of May 2017, Sandile Mantsoe was arrested. The charge at that stage was kidnapping. It would not stay that way for long. As the evidence continued to build, a far more serious charge was coming. From the moment police began asking questions, Sandile Mantsoe's story kept changing. Each version collapsed under the weight of the evidence, and each new version was more difficult to believe than the last. His first account was simple. Karabo had left his apartment that night and gone home. He had no idea where she was, but the CCTV footage showed her entering the building with him at 2:48 in the morning. There was no footage of her leaving. That story fell apart immediately. His second version was bolder. He claimed Karabo had flown to London suddenly and without warning. Investigators did not need to look far to destroy that claim. Her passport and identification documents had been found stuffed in a bin bag in the trash inside his own building. A person cannot board an international flight without a passport. That story collapsed too. His third version came during his bail hearing. Mantsoe claimed that when he returned home from work on the 28th of April 2017, he found Karabo's body in his apartment. He suggested she had taken her own life. He said he panicked about being blamed and made the decision to dispose of her remains rather than call for help. The court later heard from independent experts who confirmed that the CCTV footage showed Sandile had more than enough time to contact building security, call emergency services, or alert police. He did none of those things. Instead, according to police, he confessed to a very different sequence of events. According to investigators, Mantsoe told police he placed Karabo's body in the large wheelie bin, loaded it into his car, and drove to his family home. There, he collected acid and a container. He then stopped at a filling station to purchase petrol before driving to Bramley, a district roughly 7 kilometers from Sandton. He said he doused her body with acid and petrol, set it alight, and buried the remains in a shallow grave. Police were taken to the Bramley site. They found scorched earth and disturbed soil. The body was already gone, discovered earlier by the passerby in Lyndhurst. Mantsoe later retracted the confession entirely. He accused police of fabricating his statements and insisted he was being framed. Then came his fourth and most extraordinary version. He claimed that he and Karabo had entered into a ritual months earlier, one designed to bring power and wealth to his forex business. According to this account, the ritual required that if the relationship ended, one of them would have to die. He suggested Karabo had chosen to sacrifice herself. Judge Pete Johnson was not persuaded by any of it. He described Mantsoe as an unreliable witness who had fabricated evidence and constructed a web of lies in a deliberate attempt to manipulate the outcome of the trial. The trial of Sandile Mantsoe took place at the South Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg in 2018. As the proceedings unfolded, the full picture of who Sandile Mantsoe really was came into focus, and it looked nothing like the image he had spent years carefully building. More than 100 people came forward during the trial to testify that Mantsoe had defrauded them through trillion-dollar legacy. The luxury cars, the designer wardrobe, the prestigious apartment, all of it had been funded by money taken from ordinary people who believed his promises of financial freedom. The empire was a fiction. The mentor was a con artist. Witnesses also described the emotional and physical abuse Karabo had endured throughout the relationship. Friends recounted seeing bruises on her body and hearing her speak about wanting to leave, while still holding on to the hope that he would change. When Mantsoe took the stand, he did not look like a man on trial for murder. He wore an expensive suit and a heavy gold watch. He smiled at members of the media. The day before his verdict was read, he posed for cameras and flashed a peace sign. His behavior in court was described by observers as that of someone who believed he was untouchable. His testimony matched his demeanor. He told the court that the only thing he was guilty of was trying to build a person. He claimed he had been a positive influence in Karabo's life, and that he had supported her dreams and her charitable work. He showed no remorse. Not once. On the 2nd of May 2018, Judge Johnson delivered his verdict. Sandile Mantsoe was found guilty of premeditated murder, assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, and defeating the ends of justice. On the 3rd of May 2018, he was sentenced to 30 years for murder, 5 years for assault, and 4 years for defeating the ends of justice. With some sentences running concurrently, the total came to 32 years in prison. He was deemed ineligible for parole. Before closing, Judge Johnson looked at Sandile Mantsoe and said what the evidence had already proven. He called him a devil in disguise. When the verdict was read, the reaction outside the South Gauteng High Court was immediate. Activists and mourners had gathered daily throughout the trial, holding signs, chanting, and demanding justice. Not just for Karabo, but for every woman whose story never made the news. The hashtag Justice for Karabo had already been trending for weeks across South Africa, turning what began as a desperate search for a missing young woman into a national conversation about gender-based violence that the country could no longer avoid. But the conversation that followed was not just about Sandile Mantsoe. It was about the systems that gave him room to operate. The police dismissed Karabo's assault charge as a lover's quarrel. They took more than 2 days to process her missing person report. These were not minor oversights. They were failures with fatal consequences. When institutions treat domestic violence as a private matter rather than a serious crime, they send a clear message to abusers that they are unlikely to face consequences. Mantsoe heard that message and kept going. Then there is the painful irony that sits at the center of this story. Karabo Mokoena stood in front of vulnerable women at the Frida Hartley shelter and taught them exactly what to watch for. She described the warning signs with clarity and conviction. She told them their lives were worth more than any relationship. She believed it completely. And yet, when those same warning signs appeared in her own life, she could not break free in time. That is not a failure of intelligence or character. It is a testament to how deliberately and systematically abusers dismantle a person's ability to leave. The trap does not announce itself. It closes slowly, quietly, until leaving feels impossible. South Africa has one of the highest rates of violence against women in the world, but this is not a problem that belongs to one country alone. It is a global crisis that demands more than hashtags and headlines. Karabo's story also cast a long shadow beyond her own death. According to a report by Wikipedia, in May 2025, journalist Olerato Mongale, who had covered Karabo's case, was kidnapped and murdered. Her body was found not far from the area where Karabo's remains had been discovered years earlier. Investigators have not publicly confirmed a connection between the two cases. Karabo Mokoena never got to build her NGO. She never got to see the world she was working toward. But her story has reached millions of people. Every person who watches this and recognizes a warning sign, every person who finds the courage to leave or helps someone else do the same, that is the legacy she deserved to leave behind. If this story moved you, please subscribe, share this video, and if you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a domestic violence support line in your country. Karabo spent her short life trying to protect others. The least we can do is keep that work going.